Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Kenyan employees and their employers had abandoned everything they were doing and were waiting with bated breath the outcome of the Finance Act case that was presented to the High Court by Okia Omutata. Many had given up on this because the government has exercised a lot of state capture on independent institutions. And on this, in the Kenyan language, we thought he imeenda. And I'm actually shocked by the fact that the three-judge bench nullified the housing levy. And I know that we were expecting that maybe God will rain on them so that they declare all of it null and void. But then, did you know that the government had unleashed their secret machinery on the judges to try and intimidate and twist them to rule in favor of the government? Let us listen to Rigathi Gachagua, and the sentiment corroborates what I tell you were attempts to try and softly intimidate the judges to rule, because Rigathi Gachagua says that there are some people who had gone to court to sabotage William Ruto's agenda. To his utter shock, the brave judges defied his orders or his plea, whatever you might call it, and they ruled in favor of the Kenyan people. Just take a look.
I am aware that people have gone to court to try to suspend the housing levy and to sabotage the housing program. Much as we respect the independence of the judiciary, I want to request our judges to exercise judicial discretion and not sabotage that program. We have thousands of young people today who are now engaged in a housing program. That program will dignify the people of Kenya. It is the desire of every Kenyan who live in an urban center to own a home one day. And all of you here, that is your desire. Anybody who left the village for the urban to be an urbanite would want to own a home. Nobody wants to continue paying rent. That program enables Kenyans to own a home in an affordable manner. I appeal to our judicial officers not to allow themselves to sabotage that program. It's a good program. Already we have many young men and women who are working on this construction sites. The Governor Kwale here has said what they are looking forward to, and it's a good program. We want to ask the planners to support that program.
We've also looked at Section 33 of the VAT Act that introduces VAT on insurance compensation. We find that it does not violate Article 40 and it is not unconstitutional. We have looked at Sections 30 to 38 of the Finance Act, which amends Sections 5, 8, 12, 17, 34, 30, 34, 43, first schedule, second schedule of the VAT Act, and we do not find them in violation of the Constitution. We also looked at Section 48 of the Finance Act, which amends Sections 2, 20, 28, and 14, first and second schedule of the Excise Duty Act, and by introducing Section 36, 1A and 36A, and we do not find them unconstitutional. And we also have looked at the changes in tariff headings and rates under the Excise Duty Act, and we do not find them unconstitutional. And we find that the introduction of the housing levy amendment to Section 84 lacks a comprehensive legal framework in violation of Article 10, 201, 2010 of the Constitution. That levy against persons in formal employment to the exclusion of other non-formal income earners without justification is discriminatory and irrational and arbitrarily and in violation of Articles 27, 201, B1 of the Constitution. And flowing from those findings, we find as follows that, and these are our declarations, Section 76 to 78 of the Finance Act, amending Section 7 of the Roads Board Act, 87, amending Section 28 of the Unclaimed Assets Act, Section 88 and 89, repealing Section 29 of the Statutory Instruments Act, are unconstitutional, null and void. That Section 84 of the Finance Act violates Article 10, 2BC, 27 and 201 of the Constitution and is therefore null and void. That an order is granted prohibiting the respondents from collecting, charging, or otherwise the charge known as the Affordable Housing Act on the basis of the Section 84, and all prayers on the consolidated petition not specifically granted are dismissed, and this being a matter of public interest litigation, each party shall bear its own cost.
Rigathi's statements confirms to me two things. One, the government was very uncomfortable with any ruling against that finance bill, and they were trying all efforts to ensure that the ruling went in their favor, but it could not. It went the other way around. It also confirms the selfish nature of this regime, because it is still not lost on us, ladies and gentlemen, that courtesy of this bill, Kenyans went in what the government called public participation, and they made it very clear that they were not ready for it. In fact, there are employers that have relieved some of their employees of their duties, because if you have, for example, 200 employees, then you have to pay for them half of this housing levy. With the environment of conducting business in Kenya today very precarious, it's untenable. The cost of living is just too high. The cost of production, courtesy of the other part of the finance bill that raised the VAT on fuel from 8% to 16%. So it was not tenable. The employers rejected, the employees rejected. They intimidated, or in a way coerced, the Kenyan parliament, and this bill was passed. You remember that the DP had told off the opposition that they didn't have the numbers, and therefore it was an exercise in futility to try and even imagine that they can reject this bill. William Ruto himself had even intimidated the members of parliament, especially from the UDA or Kenya Kwanza, by telling them that he wanted to see who was going to go against this bill, because they had indicated that courtesy of the finance bill and the housing levy, Kenyans were going to be employed. And you've seen the way even Gachagua is talking there, that this is meant to employ many youths. Do not forget that William Ruto abandoned the Kazi kwa Vijana, and he purportedly replaced it with this housing finance and the housing projects, affordable housing that are going on. But they do not see all this, that Kenyans had declared their stand on this. They didn't want. They are also forgetting that courtesy of this, Kenyans had gone to the streets, and many paid by their blood. There are people who were killed. Many are maimed to date because people were protesting against, among other things, the Finance Bill 2023. So Rigathi Gachagua is representing the government's position that this is tantamount to sabotaging the president. And this is why I'm telling you that this is the height of manifestation of selfishness. But like I told you sometimes back, that our judges are also Kenyans. And the reason why they had to rule on this, they know what is going on, even with the just concluded bipartisan talks. Already, the Azimio is threatening that they might go to the streets if the cost of living is not going to be dealt with in a very pragmatic manner. And I think the judges also feel the pain of Kenyans. And so they decided to, divide it in the middle. Ruto has remained with the 16% VAT on fuel, but Kenyans have been saved from the punitive 1.5 housing levy. They also understand that what Kenyans are going through. Already the unemployment rate is just too high. and they also see the kind of fallacy that is manifested by the government. Instead of taking the bulls by its horns and look at how they can reduce the cost of living, they keep on blaming the previous regime, and the judges decided to give their ruling. But something tells me that maybe the government knew what they were doing, just to ensure that the opposition and some Kenyans see that now they are trying to reduce the cost of living. But from the sentiments of Rigathi Gachagua, I think they have been pained. Now, government lawyers, immediately after this ruling, made another plea that they wanted a conservatory order to prevent or block Kenyans from demanding a refund of the amount of money that have been deducted since this act came to place. It tells you that these people are just selfish. I mean, if the courts have ruled that this is null and void, it is unconstitutional, why then do you plead with the courts to, it was a conservatory order for about 45 days that Kenyans should not demand. And I'm telling you, this is going to form part of the debate. And if they are not careful, this is what is going to take Kenyans to the streets. The independence of our judiciary is at stake. Because, of course, we all know that they have been taken hostage. Because why would Rigathi Gachagua go on public and try, pleading with the judges that do not sabotage William Samoei Ruto? It means that, in his very considered opinion, this ruling is tantamount to sabotaging William Samoei Ruto's agenda. Because this was a way of intimidating. It is like, you see, when your boss tells you that kindly do this to me, it is an order sort of. So for Rigathi Gachagua to tell the judges that we plead with you just before the ruling of the case, they were trying to intimidate the judges. And thanks to their bravery, those bold judges decided to save Kenya. So there was a time I told you that there isn't any president who will be, taken to court many times like William Samoei Ruto. Everything he does is being challenged in court. And the courts must understand that they are the Kenyan savior as we speak today. In fact, right from the day the elections the presidential election were declared, people ran to court. And from that moment to date, it has been GMO to court, LGBTQ to court, an attempt to take people like David D and Cleopas Malala to sit in cabinet to court. Everything that the president does has always landed in our courts. And people wonder whether Justin Muturi, the Attorney General, is the right man to be there. What kind of pieces of advice does he give to the government? Because everything ends up to court. Or does it mean that William Ruto does not listen to anyone except himself? Someone was joking around that William Ruto has got one advisor called William Ruto. And I tend to believe that it is true. Because if our president goes out to Saudi Arabia to look for domestic jobs, yet we have an ambassador there, we have the Minister for Trade, and he still goes there. He wants to do everything for himself, to take political mileage. He does not listen to anyone. Just recently, cabinet secretaries were lamenting that Ruto is hands-on, he's micromanaging them. Some of the decisions that they are in their dockets are decided by some more powerful people, and they get to learn from them, from the newspapers. And it tells you that whatever William Ruto is doing, we have government staff who are being paid by taxpayers' money, but they are not given time to implement what they should, because State House and the deep state is doing everything. And sometimes we blame them, yet their hands are tied. So ladies and gentlemen, this kind of attempt was thwarted by the brave judges, and I think moving forward, we must see some of this. I remember the first judge who ruled against this plea was transferred to Mombasa. I believe this time round, no one is going to be transferred to Mombasa. And That reprieve is welcome, and I want to salute Okia Mutata wherever he is, the Law Society of Kenya, all the bodies that were involved in this, and I think it is in the right direction, even though the other part is still a thorn in the flesh, the 16%. I don't know what you think, but that is my take.